Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the January 2021 Lone Star Dowsers meeting. And I'm Mary Lindsay Wilson. I'm the program director, and you are in for a treat tonight. We have Deb McBride all the way from Costa Rica. But before we get started, I'll do a little dowsing for us, and I'm going to check the life force of our group tonight. Oh, we're pretty good. We're at, I'd say that's 70%. Let me go ahead and just neutralize anything that would be interfering with our life force, our vitality. And let's see. So now I'm going to ask us to bring our life force and vitality as a group for everybody that is watching now and that will watch in the future up to optimal levels. And here comes my pup. We have the Mighty Rex with us tonight. Okay. All right. We've got it. Okay. So Deb has a very impressive and extensive bio. So I'm going to read a few things so I don't forget anything. Now, Deb McBride has been studying astrology for most of her life. And in addition to that, she has degrees in chemistry and mathematics. But astrology's always been a vocation for her, and she was drawn to it as a child. And it's always been kind of part of her life and her surroundings. And when she was an adult, she began her professional astrological counseling practice in 1986. And she's continued to serve clients with her deepening knowledge of psychology through her own profound experiences of healing herself. Now, Deb studied advanced astrological counseling techniques with Michael Luton using the works of the psychiatrist Dr. Robert Langs. She enjoys the study of both personal and mundane astrology. You may have to explain that to us, Deb. And particularly the research of psychological and cultural shifts represented by astrological cycles. Now, Deb believes in self-discovery, that it's a lifelong journey, as do I. Since everything in our lives is really a projection of our own inner world, Deb knows that astrologers can only help their clients. Well, let me rephrase that. They can help their clients, but they can best help their clients when they do their work and they confront their own patterns. And because she always wants great results with her clients, she pushes herself to heal and do her own work. And kind of along that vein, Deb had to follow the same advice that she gives her clients about astrocartography. She left the energetic distractions of New York, where she lived, because of the astrocartography lines of Saturn and Neptune, which for her were consistently limiting, complicated, and difficult. And she moved to beautiful Costa Rica, where she lives on her Sun and Mars lines, which are places of heat, light, passion, verve, radiance, and confidence. So it's just helped her all the way around. But Deb tonight is going to give us some kind of an overview of 2021, because we all know what kind of year 2020 was. And we want to know, what do we have to look forward to? So welcome, Deb.
Thank you very much, Mary. And I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored that you asked me to speak. And so first of all, mundane astrology is the astrology of everyday life in the collective. So it's what's going on in the world, and as opposed to what's going on in your own personal chart. And so there are always going to be cycles. Astrology works on cycles, and there's always going to be cycles that we experience in our personal lives and that remind us of certain things and trigger certain things. But also in collective or mundane astrology, we are looking at cycles that happened and waves of cultural shifts that affected us in major ways. Last year was a very good example of that. There were a number of cycles that sort of converged during 2020 that normally would not converge at the same time. So, for example, last year we had one set of planets get together for the first time in 37 years. And we had another set of planets get together for the first time in 12 years. And then another set of planets get together for the first time in 20 years. So when we look at that, when I was going into that from 2019, I said, this is very, very unusual, and we're going to have a very unusual year. So now that we're past that, we got it out of the way. It's like as if you're like taking a huge exam or something, and then you move on and you're like, I'm relieved now. 2021 is not going to be like that. And it couldn't possibly,
Yay!
yay, couldn't possibly be like that because, well, how could it get worse? And then also, you know, I
That's
know
not a
that
question we want to ask.
yeah, no, it
We
couldn't
want to ask, how can it get
get
better?
better. And I know that 2021 has gotten off to a little bit of a rough start collectively. I mean, we've seen some very, strange things happen and some intense things happen, and we're not out of the woods yet as far as the pandemic, but what I feel like is that we are in a major shift. And one of the things that I pay attention to is like the consciousness shift that we're in. And that is definitely a big part of 2021 and is going to be a big part of mostly January, February, March. And this is good news because we're starting the year off with different energy and a fresh perspective and a very powerful shift forward. So, one of the things that we have been talking about, astrologers have been talking about, and I've been talking about a lot. I do an Instagram, little videos on Instagram, and I talk like almost daily about what's going on so people stay aware and stay on top of things and can find some sort of solace in what I'm talking about and like how to handle some of the energies. And I also do a podcast. I do it on Sunday nights, and I like set it up for the week and talking about what we're dealing with. But one of the things that I've been talking about a lot is that we are moving into this time of Aquarius, and this doesn't happen very often. So Aquarius is, everybody has an image of Aquarius. First of all, they start thinking age of Aquarius, and then we start thinking of Hair the musical, and then we start thinking of like love and peace. And one of the things about Aquarius is it's an air sign. So Aquarius is about intellect, and it's about verbal communication and analysis, but it's also about revolution, and it's about really using our energy in an innovative way. And Aquarius is, it's the humanitarian. It's one of the humanitarian signs. And so it encourages us to come together more. It encourages more togetherness than separateness. And I think that the world we live in, especially, you guys in the United States, I think the world we live in needs a lot more togetherness and people being on the same page. And so the energy we're dealing with is a lot of Aquarius right now, and it's going to continue to be that way through March. And I think that's pretty exciting because we don't see this very often at all. And go ahead.
Well, I love the idea of the more togetherness, because I think everybody felt very separate and mostly isolated, or their circles got really small. So this togetherness, I like I like the idea of that. I think people are ready for that.
Yeah. Aquarius is the sign of groups and communities. And so it's also the sign of innovation. So we're innovative in the way we are getting together. I mean, Aquarius also rules technology. So we're really dependent on technology right now for gatherings and get-togethers and like staying connected. But I think there's a lot of positivity in that. It's like, you can have me speak. I'm in Costa Rica, and so here we are, and so Aquarius really brings an enormous amount of mental, analytical, future thinking energy. And so it's very futuristic. And so when people start talking about Aquarius, I don't think of peace and love so much as I think of togetherness, and I think of humanitarian causes and aims and groups coming together for humanitarian reasons. But I also think that it's looking toward the future. Whereas last year we had a lot of Capricorn, and that is more earth and conservative. So it's an earth sign as opposed to the air of Aquarius. And Capricorn is much more conservative and success oriented and government oriented, and it's patriarchy oriented. And now we've shifted into this more um future thinking, open-minded place. So I think it comes from a year of being in the unknown. And a lot of the questions that we still don't have answers to, I think, and I keep telling people that we have to kind of rest comfortably in the unknown. And Aquarius is a lot about that. It's a lot of the unexpected energy. It's the surprise. It's and good surprises. You want to rest in the unknown so that you're not attached, and you're not attached to an outcome. You're not attached to, well, I want it the way it was. I want it the way it used to be. I want it the way, I'm used to it. It was comfortable that way. Aquarius is not necessarily the most comfortable energy because it's bringing us new things and it's causing us to look forward a lot. And, you know, I really think that this is a year to assimilate what happened last year, do a lot of assimilation and a lot of connection to understanding, but also really being present in the moment, and and like being open to anything that the future could certainly bring us, instead of sort of clinging to the past. And that awareness of unknown and awareness of just this, just staying comfortable in a place that doesn't have attachment is very Aquarian. Aquarians, Aquarius energy is often very aloof, and so they can move on oftentimes in their lives very easily because they are always thinking about tomorrow instead of right now. But it's a balance of thinking about right now with an eye toward the future of assimilation and connection to a bigger, brighter experience of togetherness.
I think we've all been through so much personal upheaval. Well,
Yeah,
and certainly as a nation, probably as a world,
yeah,
that to me, it feels like we are about to just burst forth in some kind of a renaissance. Like, I think
yeah.
it, we're going to be forced to be more innovative, or maybe this kind of gestation, this time of being in the cocoon, has allowed for more creativity to be expressed. I mean, makes me think about when the internet came
Yeah.
up. So that was like a big life change that we all experienced. So it kind of feels like there'll be a lot more things like that showing up.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because let's see, we're in, so like I would say by, yeah, like in 1990 or so, 1990, 1991 or so, everybody pretty much was having on the internet, starting to get on the internet. 92, like well, not everybody actually. There was
Right.
the beginnings of really it becoming something that was entering our lives. So, which is very interesting point because if I was going to look back at 1991, 1992, in that time period, Saturn would have been entering Aquarius, which is what Saturn has just done. Saturn has entered Aquarius. Now, Saturn is about rules and sometimes restrictions, but also um, Saturn is about structure and building something. And when it goes into Aquarius, it in the early days of astrology, before they discovered Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, before there were real powerful telescopes, Saturn was the ruler of Aquarius. Saturn, and they assigned planets to signs. So in astrology, every sign, like we all know our sun sign, has a ruler as a planet that rules the sign. So for Aquarius, it used to be Saturn, and it's sort of a co-ruler alongside Uranus. And since Aquarius is a sign of technology, Saturn went into Aquarius back about 28 years ago, and it's there again. This is what we call a Saturn return. And so it's sort of the Saturn return of the internet in some ways, because people started to embrace this new technology and look at it as an interesting way to enter the world and connect with people and all. And a Saturn return is usually a very important time marking period. It's Saturn takes 29 years, 28 to 29 years to go around the zodiac. And so when it comes back to where it was when something was birthed or began, whether it's personally or collectively like the internet, then something important happens. So I think you're right about like a renaissance, because this is a renaissance. This is a new level of using the internet in many ways. And who knew we'd be in a place like this? We didn't know this at the, even we didn't know this 2 years ago, never mind like 28, 29 years ago. 100 years ago, during the pandemic of the Spanish flu, they didn't have this kind of connection, and so we're very fortunate that we can still connect with one another. And so in some respects, Saturn is a very grounding kind of planet. It's a very practical planet. So there's going to be more practical use of the technology and practical methods developed going forward. So, Saturn, people, if they know anything about Saturn, oftentimes they associate like a little anxiety with Saturn, or it's raining on my parade and it's ruining my party, but it really is useful. And without it, we don't have structure, and we don't have timelines, and we don't have schedules and stuff. Saturn really generates all of that. And so it's an interesting place for it to be again. So
Well, and yeah, I think so too. And something that I'm really aware of, I think certainly this last year, probably before that, but really brought to light that there are so many systems and things in our everyday world, our government, lots of things that are not working well, but nobody really wanted to deal with it.
right.
We just kind of wanted to keep living our lives and ignore. And I think that we are in an evolution, and so it feels like again that the structure, I guess, that Saturn has will take us with the innovation of Aquarius and
Yeah.
move us forward and create new structures, new ways of doing things that actually work.
Yeah, absolutely, because um there's more clarity as far as the internet goes. There's a little more, like, we're a little more aware of how powerful social media can be, but also of the pitfalls of that as well, and so some of the problems with that. So Saturn, this sort of anniversary of the internet is a really important time. The other thing is, when Saturn arrived in Aquarius last month in December, it arrived, and then Jupiter arrived a couple of days later. So this is a very, very important experience, because Saturn and Jupiter only get together once every 20 years. And so now they are together, and they're going to be together for the next couple of months, staying very close together in Aquarius. And Jupiter is very different from Saturn. Jupiter is about optimism, and it is that renaissance. It is that opening of the door and the opportunities, and the Jupiter is about rules, travel, and philosophy, and belief systems, and Jupiter is very open to ideas, and it's generally an optimistic planet. It's a protective planet. It's where it sits in the solar system. If it weren't for Jupiter, we might, and its size, we might get hit with other flying objects like asteroids and things much more easily. Jupiter really is this greater benefic, this greater protection of energy. And so it's a smoother transition with Saturn going into Aquarius because Jupiter's with it. And it's very exciting because this is the first time in 800 years that Jupiter and Saturn have gotten together in Aquarius. And they have left the earth signs. They were for several hundred years, they were just getting together in earth signs. Um, and now they've made this transition where like every 20 years when they do get together, it will be in air signs. And so this like christening of the energy in Aquarius is a very powerful opportunity to sort of reach out and get connected to people and communities in a way that we hadn't before. So it's really profound, and it's a profound aspect because there's always a changing of the guard around, Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions, and sometimes we
We
see,
have definitely had a changing of the guard.
yeah, today we had changing of the guard, we did. That was a big change, but there's other things going on too, like there's the end of an era in certain ways, and then the beginning of something new. And so the last time they got together, Jupiter and Saturn got together, was in Taurus, and it was in May of the year 2000. And so there's a lot more that's happened in these last 20 years, 21 years since then. And so we can expect some more grand plans to be rolled out in this year. And I would recommend that everyone start to really think about, how they can sort of serve their group or community, because Aquarius is about service too, and how they want to join with people and how they want to take their life forward in an innovative way. Because of Jupiter Saturn, it's a profound aspect, and it's exciting. It's one of the more exciting aspects that we've had in a while. So, especially where it's placed.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, focusing on how you can serve your community and take it forward. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so since it's been 800 years, is there something we need to do to take advantage of that? Or some way you might imagine it's showing up?
Um, well, so right now, so Jupiter and Saturn entered in December, and they got together in December. And then like a day or so yesterday, so this is Aquarius season. This is when Aquarius starts. Like everybody knows that this is when Aquarius starts, and it goes to like February 19th. And so now the sun, because this is the sun's turn to go into Aquarius after Capricorn, the sun is in Aquarius. And so that means that that's 3 planets in Aquarius. And then a couple of weeks ago, Mercury, which is the planet of communication, entered Aquarius. So we actually have 4 planets in Aquarius right now. And so this is pretty exciting because this means that, the sun is going to come along. So the sun illuminates, it's our life force. And so as it passes over this next few days, about a week or so, it passes over Jupiter and Saturn, it's going to illuminate more about what, we can accomplish during this time, and what we can expect from ourselves, and what, this is a time to kind of dream big. Aquarius rules, long-term goals and aspirations. It's also, the innovator. It's a little bit of a weirdo of a sign. So it's, it's Aquarians like to be eccentric and like to do things differently than everybody else. So where is your inner eccentric, like the eccentric that lives within you? And where's your eccentricity? Where does that appear in your life? Where are you different from everyone else? Where do you like to be different than everyone else? And how
I
does
guess it's
that, yeah,
celebrating that, and really, I think coming out of the closet with that, right? Everyone wanted to
exactly,
be like everybody else. But I think the thing that we really appreciate is when people are so authentic and themselves, the thing that makes you unique.
right? Yes. Well, authenticity is a big part of Aquarius. And I know certain Aquarians that will tell me, oh, authenticity is everything for me. And so um, a lot of people will be surprised at some of their own eccentricities. Last year, one of the things I kept saying over and over again was, when was the last time in history we were told to go in and stay in? And therefore, I was, decoding that as that means go within and shine the light in the closet. And now what's happened as a result is you found out things about yourself that I bet you didn't know. A lot of us did. And in ways of either survival or thriving, or turning up the volume on your business in a brand new way, and in your life, something shifted. And so when you think about that, this is the time to bring out the unique quality that you discovered last year. So the expression of that is really important now. And it's exciting for people to say, hey, you know what? I discovered this. I didn't know I had this in me. And so they can go out and show that to the world now and not be afraid of it, because Aquarius allows us to be authentic, like you said, and really the most authentic self. And the exciting part about that is that people can not be afraid. I mean, Capricorn, like I said, was much more conservative. Yes, we still have rules that we need to maintain. But one of the things that's so open about this is we can think bigger now, and we can think in many different ways and think of how, we can bring to light some of our more unique traits and qualities.
I love it. And to celebrate that, because I
Yeah.
think for so long, I guess I'll speak for myself, but I think a lot of us here felt like we probably had to keep what some people considered the woo woo part of ourselves, sort of under wraps. And I think people are just hungry,
Yeah.
for, metaphysics and spirituality, and just kind of a broader perspective than what they've been aware of.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I think people are hungry for that. And um, I think people had to have faith when they didn't know that there was reason to have faith. So that's another lesson of Jupiter and Saturn together in Aquarius, because Jupiter is about having faith, and Saturn says, what do you want to believe in that for? So there's this sort of back and forth between the two of them, of Jupiter saying, hey, we have to have faith in our own unique qualities. And Saturn will say, well, okay, I can go along with that as long as there's a practical use for that. And what people will start to find is their unique qualities are serving them in some way that is different than they've ever expected. And so I think that that's exciting. The sun will illuminate that over the next month, especially in the next week. And then Mercury, which is, everybody's favorite to talk about when it goes retrograde. Mercury's going to go retrograde on the 31st of January in Aquarius. And so it's going to be in Aquarius till March. And so when a planet retrogrades, it appears to be traveling backwards from where we are on the Earth. And just, it's not because planets don't travel backwards, it's the distance between us and that planet, and its speed and our speed, and how fast the Earth is moving versus how fast Mercury is moving. And so Mercury will retrograde at the end of the month and sort of revisit all this Aquarius till March, the middle of March. And this is exciting too, because Mercury is giving us an extra dose of this. Mercury is making us really, when Mercury goes retrograde, we have to go again within and think and use our intellect in a new way, and sort of figure out new things when Mercury's like people really associate, when people have problems with Mercury retrograde, there's something they've overlooked in their life. So like, yeah, there's always going to be a little something, there are things that happen when Mercury, the you don't sign contracts, you don't do this, you don't do that. It means to like dot your I's and cross your T's. And so you have to double check everything. Like I know people who were getting married on a Mercury, like the day Mercury was getting retrograde, and they dotted their I's and crossed their T's, and everything came off smoothly. And they have like long, happy marriages. So one of the things that's so important about Mercury retrograde is it gives us the chance to review what we might have overlooked. And so I think we have to have a new perspective on Mercury retrograde, because it's not always Mercury's going retrograde and my computer's going to break. And I bet, yeah, back up your data. But it's one of those things where we have to just sort of reconcile it with, it's in Aquarius, so it's going to give us that opportunity to kind of back up and take the new perspective in at a deeper level, because any planet that goes retrograde forces us to go within and think about what's happening inside ourselves too. So we do some self understanding,
Reflection.
some reflection, and some work on ourselves.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. All right, Dowsers. There's a tool that we can use. Um, so if you have fears or concerns about Mercury retrograde, or you feel like you're being affected by planetary influences, you want to share kind of what we talked about, Deb?
Sure. Thanks, Mary. We were talking about how to use dowsing with astrology, and I said, one of the things you can do is you can neutralize, how you neutralize with your pendulum, you can use the pendulum to neutralize the current astrological aspects. So if you're feeling Mercury retrograde and you feel that Mercury is just driving you up the wall, you can like use your pendulum to douse and say, okay, I'm clearing current astrological aspects that are affecting me in my life and in my astrological chart. And you know we were also talking about Raymond Grace, who's like master dowser, and how he created a problem package, and he just doused right through it and neutralized all the energy of the problem package. And I said, well, that's a great thing to do. So if Mercury retrograde brings you contract issues, misunderstandings in communication, you can make a list of all those things and sit with your pendulum and just neutralize them until you feel clear. So yeah, I think that one of the things, especially with Saturn's going to stay in Aquarius for 2.5 years. So there's, Saturn always teaches us a lesson, and Jupiter will be in Aquarius for a year. And so next year, like, it'll step into Pisces a little bit this year, but next year it'll really go into Pisces. And I think that Jupiter will mitigate a lot of Saturn's maybe sometimes pessimistic vibe it gives us. But I think the pendulums are particularly useful in neutralizing Saturn because it can be so much of like a wet blanket at times. And and we've got to see because when you get through Saturn, when you finish up with Saturn, you're like, wow, look at what I accomplished. I accomplished so much in this time. And that's one of
That's a really great thing to look forward to, because I think, oh, it's like oppressive or disciplinarian, but I guess we need discipline to really accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. So I guess, yeah, if you go to the gym for however long, then you're going to
yeah,
have the result of the
right.
look what I accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Or, you wanted to write that great American novel. You got to sit down at your desk and write that great American novel. And that's the one great thing about Saturn is there's always the experience of having, like, it's, while you're going through it, it's this, tedious thing. But when it comes to an end, you embrace it and you say, wow, look, I wouldn't have had this if I hadn't sat down and really focused and dealt with this. And what I
we're going to have these great ideas with Aquarius and that expansion of Jupiter, but Saturn's going to give us the grounding
Yeah,
to accomplish some things. Is
yes,
that,
yes, exactly.
well, we need that.
Yeah, yeah, because you want to accomplish something new. You don't want to accomplish the same old thing. It's like you're staying in the same old treadmill. Um, yeah, it's more exciting if you're obviously like creating something different. And Jupiter and Saturn are giving us the chance to do that. And we can have lots of new ideas with Mercury there. And then Venus will eventually join in February, and there will be then 5 planets in Aquarius for February, and then at some point, the moon will pass through, because the moon takes 28 days to go around the zodiac, so it'll pass through, and in mid-February we have a new moon in Aquarius, and it's very powerful because there will be 6 planets in Aquarius at that point. So that's a very intense and powerful time to look at where you can innovate your life. And Aquarius falls in each person's chart differently. I'm an Aquarius, so it falls for me in very relevant places. And for someone like you, Mary, it's like you're a Leo, so it's opposite you. So it's all about partnership. So anyone who's a Leo, it's about like bringing other people into your life and looking at um, the other person differently and bringing new and different fresh energy into your life. Like, yeah.
So let's think of it. So February, I can't help but think about Valentine's Day, and then
Yeah,
Venus is being in there. So
yeah,
maybe it's a time partnerships can form, or I don't
yeah,
know, favorable aspects for love for people.
yeah. Sure. I mean, certainly, because there's a lot of positive energy. Aquarius is pretty, can be pretty optimistic, a little contrary and stubborn at times, but it can really bring someone unique into your life. For you, a Leo, yeah, it's the opposite, and it often will bring unique and interesting people across your path. And it's good to, like, that's a good time to start business partnership, collaborations, or a love relationship. Yeah, and sort of identify unique qualities that you want in a partner. And then you realize, well, you know what, I never thought of that before, but actually this is something that I value in someone. And Jupiter and Venus are all about valuing things and people. And so when Venus enters you, it's like, oh yeah, these are the qualities I want in a person, and it help you identify more about what you desire in a partner, whatever kind of partner that would be. So sure.
That's
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's happy to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
So are there other things in February we need to consider?
I think that that's the big event in February.
Okay.
That's really the main stuff. And there's the Aquarius new moon happens on the 11th, and so that's the big one of the big aspects, and that's very exciting. The other thing is that the ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, and it's in an earth sign. It's in the sign of Taurus. So this is very interesting. And it entered Taurus, just about 2 years ago. And Uranus takes 7 to 8 years to go through a sign. So it's in this very earthy, grounded, nature oriented sign of Taurus, and sort of financially oriented also. And it rules this forward thinking, um, future thinking, expansive sign of Aquarius. So Uranus brings surprises to Taurus, because Taurus is where we're very traditional, or where we don't want to budge. Because everybody knows a little bit about Taurus, and that they can be stubborn. And but Taurus, the wonderful thing about Taurus is they're there for life. If you marry a Taurus, they're gonna be there for you. If you hire a Taurus, they're gonna work and be there for you. People who are Tauruses, like Queen Elizabeth, they don't budge.
So is that true for people that are Taurus rising?
Yeah, of course, I think Taurus moon,
Mhm.
particularly Taurus
Mhm.
moon, they stick it out. Um, but also, you know, because the planet that rules Aquarius is in Taurus, it's this dynamic that we're going to be navigating this year between the traditional and the innovative. So this is going to be an ongoing theme this year of navigating what's traditional, what's innovative, and where we're comfortable, because Taurus is a sign of comfort. And this is why I keep saying get comfortable with the unknown. Get comfortable with the unknown, because then you're not attached. And Uranus really, I think, if anything rules the unknown, it's Uranus. It's like tomorrow there's a surprise. Someone shows up at your door that you didn't expect, and it's a good thing. And then, we want good surprises, obviously, but When it's in Taurus, Taurus is like, I know Taurus is very well, and they say to me, I don't like change. I don't like change. And so when Uranus, the planet of change, comes into their sign, they're like, oh, I have to change. So they can't have to learn to navigate also what is traditional, what they're used to, how they manage and sort of stay. They're very grounded people and manage, but also be open. So they've got to balance, and we all have to balance. Where have we been too stubborn in our lives? Where have we been too stuck in our ways? Like, do you do the same old thing with your career? Do you use the same, or you rely on the same old tactics and it's not getting you anywhere? Now it's time to expand and think of things as, new and refreshed. Aquarius and Taurus are both fixed signs, meaning that they stay put, and they're the stayers. They're the ones that move through the zodiac, and Leo is a fixed sign, and Scorpio as well, as opposed to say Gemini, which is very flexible and mutable and movable. These are the people that stick it out. But since they are both there, they are in challenge to one another. Aquarius and Taurus challenge one another. And so the challenge is our challenge for the year is this navigation between what's conservative and what's innovative. And one of the representations of that is Saturn talking to Uranus, which is going to happen 3 times this year. So the first one is going to be February 17th. And so February 17th, Saturn will do what we call square Uranus. And a square is a 90-degree aspect. And I always tell people, if you to think of a square, think of a box, and like think of how that little corner is. Like there's this perpendicular thing going on between one corner and one side of the box. And that's what a square looks like. It's 90 degrees. And that means that Saturn which is the faster moving planet, is saying to Uranus, hey, we have to, it's a very interesting dynamic, because Saturn's in Aquarius, and Saturn, which is the conservative planet, Uranus is the rebellious planet, Saturn's in its rebellious sign. So there's this interesting dynamic going on between rebellion, conservatism, navigating between breaking free and having an epiphany in your life or in your work. Wherever you feel you've gotten stale, Saturn will bring that to your attention and say, look, you know what? You got to open the door to something. And Uranus allows the door to open. And Jupiter has been part of that as well, but not as much as Saturn will be. So Saturn and Uranus are this process by which we recognize and acknowledge, where we can shift and make changes, even if it's not comfortable. So we have to be okay with it and okay with navigating how we are opening the door and
Okay.
to innovation.
So I'm gonna see if I can translate that just to make
Okay.
sure I understand, for which you did a great job, but let me just recap
No,
and
go
see.
ahead.
So what I'm hearing kind of with the square, right? When the Saturn
Yeah.
and Uranus are kind of doing their dance, that it's an opportunity where I guess we can get the gentle nudge or the 2x4 that says, okay, you got to let go of where you're stuck.
Right.
What's not working, you know, it's going to be so obvious that you will have to make a change,
Right.
right?
Right.
um because I think that's about this whole, I don't know, period that we're in, like what no longer works, we can't limp along anymore, you
Right.
know.
Right.
The donut spare is not going to get you to where you want to go. You're going to have to get the new, set of tires to move forward,
Yeah.
literally. So
So yeah, and I think that we're all being asked to do that. Yeah, you're right, the donuts, but that's a good analogy. Yeah, there's this opportunity being given to us to like become aware of how we've been sort of on the same treadmill over and over again. And one planet actually sort of sits down, and it's like Saturn is like the disciplinarian, and it says, okay, you know, this is where you need, like when you sit down, you get your your yearly review at work, or when you get your report card as a kid, this is where we need to see improvement. This is where we need to see, expansion. And so there's going to be this hesitation of, do I really have to do this? Do I have to put myself out there like that? And yeah, there's you got to start comfortably. Like there'll first be something in February that comes up, and you'll say, oh, okay, now I'm being made aware of the first layer of this. And like, say, for example, you need to expand your business into other things. Like you might need to add new products, or widen your reach to people, or add more social media, be expand on. So something, for example, will come across your plate, and you'll say, oh, I need to work with this. And then June 14th is the second time these two planets are going to talk to each other in this dance. And they will say, okay, we're going a deeper level now. The next layer is going to be obvious to us on how we work with this energy, and how we can move it forward. Okay. And a lot of times with Saturn, you're like, but I'm doing all I can. I've been working my butt off. And you often find that you have to, maybe you just, there's places where you've overlooked it, or you are not favorably embracing something that would be healthy for you to embrace. So, and then by the time the third passage comes, which is Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2021, which is a long way away, that's, you'll be a master. You'll know what you've done, you'll know what you're doing, you'll feel the results of it, you'll be happy with what you've done, and we'll always be asking ourselves for improvement. But by that time, by the end of the year, you'll understand more about how much you've accomplished. So yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds positive. So what? All right. So that's kind of. I think you said there was a lot of things happening in March. I guess I would be curious, kind of overall for the year, but also kind of in the different. Obviously, we're creating a lot of change this year, right? What
Yeah,
doesn't work is going to be so obvious that we have to expand, we have to change. So
right.
that is clear.
Okay.
I guess financially, right? I mean, it feels like certainly for the US and I think most countries that's been kind of turned upside down, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of it's just different. So
Yeah.
what does does that show up in any particular way this year?
Yeah, because Taurus, so I was talking about Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is a sign that rules finances and security. And if you know any Tauruses, or somebody, especially with the moon in Taurus, these are people who are very concerned about the roof over the head, the dinner on the table, the money in the bank, everything's, the car is running, all the practical needs are met. And Taurus rules that level of awareness of, okay, you know, am I taking care of things financially? And that one of the surprises was how everyone's finances changed or didn't. Like, this is the thing about astrology, it's revealed to us what's working and what's not on a regular basis. So once last year hit and people had to scramble, sometimes people did extremely well because they were poised to do really well because of the nature of their business. Some people struggled a lot, people like in the tourism business. So they had to innovate in some way to bring back customers, to bring, like, I have friends here who own a branding business, and they one of their clients is Honda, and they had to, like, Honda had to scramble with them, and like, no one's going to buy a car now. So yeah, you're right. No one's going to buy a, who's going to think about buying a car, especially if they can't go out. So, like, what do those businesses do? So everybody had to get innovative about, working on a different level of, and have different expectations of themselves financially. So Taurus is about, and Uranus is like, it shakes up the financial world for sure. because Uranus comes along. Taurus is an earth sign. Uranus is the planet that shakes things up. So it's like an earthquake in some ways. So we've seen this earthquake, and now we've got to like sit down and look at the finer points of it, and where could we be more expansive in some ways. Uranus wants us to expand in many, and look at the bigger picture and not allow ourselves to get stuck. And Taurus, it's interesting because Taurus rules like that feeling of like being on the treadmill a little bit, but it also rules money. So if you're comfortable in your life, you don't want anything to change. You don't want you don't want discomfort. You're comfortable financially, you don't want things to change. But when something comes along like this and says, okay, we have to change things, that life doesn't go on forever. Life works in cycles. It's one of those incredible moments when you get enlightened and you step it up and you do what you have to do to make things work on a whole new level. And you know what I think is really great about that is that it gives us the opportunity to expand and do even better in our lives, like, and
maybe try new things that
try new
we
things.
hadn't considered before.
Right, 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 exactly. Sure. So, I think that, and inevitably, we'll have eclipses and stuff this year, and they always bring emotions to the table. So eclipses happen every 6 months or so. So we had them in November, December, and then, we'll start having them again in May and June. So, and those are in different signs. Those are more Sagittarius and Gemini. So they're the mutable, the flexible. And so that's going to help us get more flexible about what we're doing. They can't all be fixed energy. It can't, because then we'll be trudging along and we know we have to change, but along with, like, when eclipses come, there'll be one May 26th and one on June 10th, and they both bring a lot of movable energy to the picture, which I think is really important. So, and then there's ones again November 19th and December 3rd, and they also bring more movable energy to the picture. So yeah, so it's eclipses always bring emotions up. If there's something brewing emotionally that we're just maybe avoiding, eclipses will like make sure you deal with it. But they also bring opportunities, because great things have happened on eclipses. Like, we get opportunities, things come forward, people open their doors. And I think that eclipses can really, like, when you're waiting on something and you're really pushing hard, maybe in your work or something, and it pops. That's what happens during an eclipse. So that's always good.
Okay, we can look forward to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do people have questions about anything?
I'm sure they do. So if you guys just want to put yourself in the chat and let me know, I can and ask Deb. I do have a question that probably is on everybody's mind. So, health wise, the end of this pandemic,
Oh,
or
yeah.
what how would that show up astrologically?
Well, it's interesting. Some astrologers predicted that the Jupiter Saturn, which was December 21st, would be when the vaccination came forward. And that's exactly what happened. And so I think we had to get in it, people had to get innovative quickly to handle the need. And I think that Aquarius is often, I think that that's a really good point. I think it should go rapidly, that people will be able to, like, if they want to take advantage of that. And I think there's enough people who want vaccinations that will get them, and will that should help the matter, that should really help things. but I don't think, like, I think that that shows up more like, in it with Aquarius, and then also Neptune. Neptune is the planet of healing, and it's in its own sign of Pisces. So that's like also has been indicative of the pandemic. But the Neptune is making relationship right now to the nodes of fate. So that is something that where people this is a turning point as far as health goes. Yeah. So there's, when I say the nodes of fate, they're like the north and the south node that we all have, but the ones in the sky. And the communication is where the direction is right now. Like everybody's sort of communicating, getting the right information about the vaccination, putting the right information out there. And not just like getting vaccinated for the sake of getting vaccinated, just, oh, well, I'm going to be protected now, to be very aware of what that is. So I think it's got a lot more to do with Neptune and its position, and that it's a turning point as far as that's concerned. So yeah, I think things will improve. There's always going to be some glitches. There's always going to be, we're always going to hear about things later, and so I think generally speaking, they're getting it under control, and that I think that the astrology shows a lot of innovation, a lot of innovation. And so I think that there may be more than one. I heard something a few months ago about a plant-based vaccine that I think would be very appealing to a lot of more holistic people as well. So I think the health thing shows a lot of innovation in the coming months. So yeah.
Well, and I guess with Aquarius being about mental and information, right?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
maybe more information is available so people can make informed choices
Exactly.
about
Exactly.
their health and etc.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
We don't have a question yet, but I still have some more questions.
Great. Okay.
All right, so wow, what a political uh, what an exciting political time we've been
Yeah.
through. Um, so, are we seeing more smooth sailing or more innovation? I mean, I know, I guess the US's chart. I mean, didn't we just have a big return?
Well, Pluto. Yeah. Someone's asking something.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Pluto, the United States is having its Pluto return. So that's going to happen over the next couple of years. And what that means is um, the United States is, born 1776, and Pluto was at the end of the sign of Capricorn at that time. Um, Pluto is now at the end of the sign of Capricorn. Pluto will go into Aquarius in 2023, 2024. And it's so the United States is going through a massive transformation. So imagine, okay, so now here we are, we're witnessing a Saturn return of the internet, and we've each had a Saturn return in our lives if we're 29 or older. Imagine a Pluto return when Pluto is the planet of transformation. Um, uh, it's it's about digging under the earth and unearthing things and sort of being accountable for the past. So any sort of political upheaval that we might have experienced back in 1776, which the country was divided. And people think, yes, there was a revolution, we split from the British. But there were people in the United States that did not want to split from the British. And so there's that division that happened then. And so there may be, I think like Pluto and Aquarius, we've got to navigate all that. The navigation comes from Pluto saying, hey, there are people who want an upheaval. And so, Pluto says we're transforming and we may not be the same country anymore, but we'll be different and better. There are people who are behind the times, there are people who are ahead of the times, everybody's got to, like, again, there's that togetherness that everyone has to get on the same page. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of people to be on the same page. Um, this whole thing about truth and not truth, like what's true and what's not true, conspiracy theories. I think that those really I think that the things that are just blatant lies have to be stamped out. So I'm hoping Pluto helps with that, as it transforms, as the United States gets transformed, a lot of that. Pluto unearths what's unhealthy and clears it away. And so we want, that particular part of Pluto to sort of transform the information people are getting, that the information they're getting is correct and true.
Right, because I think people's confidence in mainstream media is been shattered.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I would like to believe that that will there will be reconciled.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay, so we have a question. Could you share more about the plant-based vaccine if possible?
I don't know anything. I've just heard about it. I heard there was one, like a friend of mine here said she had read about it, and there was one company, I think in the United States, that was doing it, but it was told to me months ago, so I don't actually know anything, but I bet there's information online about it. So
Yeah, or when it does, you can check all the holistic healers
yeah.
and practitioners that when that. Yeah. Um, yeah, I haven't heard anything about that, but that would be really interesting. That'd be very innovative, very
That would be
Aquarian.
very Aquarian. It's about time. Yeah, Aquarius is also, whenever I see someone get a good dose of Aquarius in their health house, I say to them, you have to do things differently. You can't just go back to the same old thing. And that can go either way. Like usually what it means is they've been conservative and they use Western medicine. And then when Aquarius comes along, it's like, well, you know what? You're getting this, and it's time for you to embrace other things, acupuncture, holistic remedies, that kind of thing, which is more Aquarian, interestingly enough, because a lot of those things are so ancient, you know.
So should maybe it would be more revealing for each person to see where Aquarius is in their chart.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, because um, it depends on the person. And their birth time has a lot to do with it, and their birth city, in addition to their birth date. So when people get their charts read, they can see where Aquarius falls. Like, for someone who's Leo rising, it's going to be more seventh house. And someone like who, we also do look at the sun sign and say, well, like I said before, you're a Leo, so this is all going to be opposite you. So it's about partners. And it depends on the person's ascendant or rising sign, and it helps if, like, some people have their chart, they printed it out and they know what it is, or they've had it read before, or if they want to get it read. This is something that it's good to know where the Aquarian qualities are going to be moving through in their astrological chart.
because that would probably be about the most change and the most expansive
Right,
or innovative things that would be happening in their lives,
right,
right? How
exactly.
that would affect them personally.
Yeah,
So
and especially since this is such a unique time and such a powerful time, then I really think that it's an interesting um, an interesting thing to check out where it is in your, like, if it's in your career house, boom, there's going to be stuff that happens for you career wise. And the important thing also about this is it started, like, the Jupiter Saturn started in December, but, like, remember, it doesn't happen again for another 20 years. So it's like an imprint. It makes an imprint in that house. And it lasts for years. Like, for example, I reached a turning point at the last Jupiter Saturn where it was in my career house. And that Jupiter Saturn was in Taurus, and it was with a bunch of other Taurus planets, and it was in my career house. And I got appointed to my astrology board, and then, like, all sorts of other career things really start to happen after that. So it's an imprint. It doesn't mean, oh no, I missed my opportunity. It's like now April and it's not happening. No, it's zapping that house, and you're gonna have an abundance of events going on in that area, and that's your focus. That's your real background focus of your life in the next 20 years. Like there's always, that will always be on your mind, like, okay, my business, my work, or my family, like this is, brings things to your attention about your family, or maybe you're starting a new family, you're having your own children, and this is the time to do that. So it's important. It's important.
Well, having said that, I want everybody to know that they can have a session with Deb. She does personal charts and readings, and she's really remarkable. And she's also offering a special deal for our dowsing group. So I guess they can contact you at your website, Deb
Yeah.
at McBride, but they would need to say that they saw you on the Dowsers
Okay.
to because you're offering a discount.
Yes, I'm offering a discount. So the regular, for new astrological clients, the price is usually 260, and I'm offering it for 200.
So yeah, that's fabulous. We appreciate that. Okay,
Mhm.
we have a question about astrocartography, which I know is near and dear to your heart. So will you talk more about that?
So astrocartography is a very interesting and fascinating, uh, more recent development in astrology, and it developed as a result of being able to map things on astrological software. And so, um, astrocartography takes your map, your astrological chart, and put it over a geographical map. And so it changes and shifts based on the city and that you're looking at. So the astrological chart will be sort of spread out over anywhere in the world that you want, or the entire world, and you see where planets line up in certain areas, so that there are things going on in those areas or not. Like sometimes you get someone, and like I talked about, and you mentioned at the beginning of the talk, that I lived on a Saturn and Neptune line in New York. And and the whole East Coast was Saturn and Neptune. And so even if I had moved to Boston or Florida, it would have been the same thing. Now, if you live on Saturn and Neptune, when people come to see me, I try to not get them to be on Saturn, because some people get depressed on Saturn. Some people work too much on Saturn. Some people feel isolated on Saturn. But for me, it was I worked, I worked, I worked, I worked. And Neptune was, well, that's the spiritual part of your business. So I had a spiritually oriented business. I was doing astrology. And so, but what this happened was this treadmill, treadmill, treadmill. And then Neptune says, where am I at the end of the day? And so Neptune doesn't really create a physical achievement. Saturn does, but then when you're it's sort of Neptune kind of undermines it. So I was like, no, this isn't helping me. And I would go visit other places, and I would see the difference in what, like I have Jupiter in England, and I loved England. England was great. My partner at the time, when he was alive, he had Saturn. He grew up in England. He had Saturn there. He's like, I can only be there for 10 days. I can only be there for 10 days. I can't be there for more than that, because it makes me, and I understand. Now that I've moved away from Saturn, when I've gone back to New York, it feels like, oh my God, I can't be here any more than 10 days. I can't deal with this. And how did I live here for so long? And it's interesting, but Saturn will keep you, like, you just feel responsible to that place. And so you keep going back to it in some ways. Like, it's hard to get away from it. But when you move to, say, Jupiter is like a wonderful example of, like, just living on, where you feel free and open and successful, and opportunities come, but you have to like a place. I can't just send you, well, you have Jupiter in Paris, go live there. And you go to Paris and you're like, nah, I don't love Paris. But maybe Jupiter doesn't appear in a place that's livable. It could be in the ocean, or it could be in some place part like Siberia or something that you really don't want to go to. But it depends on your astrological chart, and that astrocartography really relies on an accurate birth time. It really relies on having that like to 20 minutes at least, if you don't have a birth time to 20 minutes, it can be very inaccurate. And that's not something I like, because obviously when people come, a lot of people are interested in astrocartography, and it's important to have the accuracy for that, because I can't move them someplace and it's not good.
So now, like if somebody wanted to move to a place that was beneficial for relationships or for business, the different lines would
Yeah,
lend themselves to that.
yeah. I mean, I can show you an example if you want me to share my screen. I can show you, or you can just.
Sure. I'm going to ask you one more thing before we do that. And how does it work when two people want to know a beneficial place to live together?
Well, that's complicated. So first of all, yeah, if you want to fall in love, go to your Venus line. Go to your sun line, because at your sun line you thrive. It's where you shine. You go to your Mars line, where there's more passion. Venus, Jupiter brings lots of people and activity and finances into your life. If you want to grow your business, now you can live say you live on Venus, you live on your Venus line, and you have a lovely family life and husband or wife or whatever. And Jupiter is like in, a different city. And it could be that you do business a lot where the Jupiter line is. So, like, for example, I have the sun line going through Houston. And so when I visit Houston, I see people and it's social and I have friends there, and it's like a little hub for me. And in a way, like, okay, I didn't have to be there so much because the sun is there, and it sort of shines and radiates there. I have friends and stuff. And when we so the people from those areas can bring you that energy. So anybody who might be in the middle of Texas for me would bring the sun to me, no matter where I'm living. But also, doing business someplace, like I could go to Boulder, Colorado, where I have my Jupiter line, and do business there, and it's all good, because I have Jupiter there. So you don't have to, if your business is expansive and now everyone is like working, they can live anywhere in the world. If we're working remote, then they can live in one city that pleases them. Maybe it's Bali, and they can do their work in, in the United States or whatever, because there's Jupiter in New York and Venus in LA, and they can manage that way, if as long as their business lends itself to that. So yeah. And when two people get together, well, I've done couples readings, and couples readings are complicated because obviously people have different astrology, and it has to, like, when they want to move, I have to find the happy place, and they sometimes come and they say, well, we've got these three choices, and then I have to sit down and sort of negotiate with them. And then sometimes we'll just be out of curiosity, and I'll say, oh, you both work well here in New York, or you both work well, on the Pacific side, the Pacific coast, it's really good in the Pacific Northwest or something. And I've had to navigate people to different places and they made decisions based on both of their charts, like working. And then there are some times when it's absolutely complicated, when I say, this, no, don't go there because it's going to be bad for her. And for him, it's really, really good, but it's bad for her. And I remember one couple had relocated from England many years ago. They came to see me, and she had Pluto going through New York, and he had like the sun and Venus or something, and he was really happy, like his job had relocated him and he was fine, and she was just like, get me out of here, I want to go home. And so it was complicated because he was relaxed and he's like, what's the problem? And she was not. So it it's one thing if you get relocated by your job, that's a whole other matter. But if you are making the choice together, then there is a negotiation that has to happen if your charts are very different. I've found people who meld perfectly, like, oh great, Florida's great for both of you. Go ahead, blessings, So
So where should somebody absolutely not move?
I don't like Saturn. I don't love Saturn. I think it depends on, like, if Saturn is there and then there's like Jupiter and Venus and Mercury and stuff, and there's other stuff going on, then it mitigates the Saturn. Then they get a lot of work done, but they still have a social life and a love life and all that. Maybe it forces them to commit on a certain level. Maybe they have karma there. Saturn's a planet of karma. I don't love Uranus, or the outer planets are complicated because alone they can be problematic. Like if you just live on your Uranus line, you are in chaos a lot of the time. If you just live on your Neptune line, you are like spinning your wheels a lot unless you have a very deeply spiritual practice and you are just like you're a Buddhist monk, or you're living in a very deep spiritual life. um I know people who live on their Uranus line and they are in the tourism industry, so they're always on the go. That makes sense. And they're actually like, one person I'm thinking of is like a helicopter pilot, so they that works with Uranus. um Pluto, I wouldn't live on Pluto. Some people love Pluto. They're like, I feel so empowered here. I feel so great here. I love living here. Okay, if you love that, then I'm not going to argue with you, and you eventually may get tired of it. So the outer planets, Saturn, the outer planets, unless there's mitigating energy there, like Venus and the sun and all, I would say I try to not put people there. Um, I found Saturn and Neptune to be particularly difficult. Um, I think that it depends on the person and what they want. And there's also Chiron, the asteroid, who's the wounded healer. In mythology, he's the wounded healer. And that varies widely between people. I've had people go to a place, have a lot of trouble on their Chiron line, and become a healer. And that served them. I had people move to their Chiron line and they have regular jobs, but they felt healed by the environment. So I loved Chicago because they felt that they really loved being healed in that sort of nest of Chicago.
That is very interesting. Well, yeah, if you want to show us your chart, that would be interesting. Just like a little kind of wherever your line is, and unless somebody's got another question. So let me see. Do I need to share screen with you?
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, there we go. So here's
Okay.
my software. And so if I take today's chart, for example, and it's located in Houston, then what I would do is I look at this, and this is where the planets are right now, but I would go to my map, and here's like the West Indies. If I look at the US, so this is like for someone born now, this is what it looks like. This is their astrocartography. So they've got a lot of stuff, in this is a person born in Houston now at this hour. So, Houston doesn't have a whole lot. There's Mercury, and every line works 500 miles on either side. So when I look at Mercury to Houston, I see 387. Okay, that works. But, there's a lot of energy for them here in Arizona and parts of New Mexico, because this still lends itself to New Mexico, and Las Vegas to a certain degree. Yeah, so this might feel, and this is where things start to conflict. So the moon is here. So like if you're living in Phoenix and you're living on a moon line, well, that's great, and Jupiter comes through here as well in Los Angeles. And there's, it extends itself to Phoenix, but then there's also this Mars Uranus, which is very complicated to live on. It means there could be a lot of upheaval for someone, living here. And, then here's Neptune over in New England. And for someone born at this hour in Houston, this would be their chart. But maybe it just doesn't work for them, in Boston or Maine, it just,
Hmm.
it just doesn't feel like anything. I find people get an illusion under Neptune. Like I've met people who say, hey, I think I really want to stay in New York, but Neptune, I say to them, Neptune is there, and your Neptune line is making you think you want to be in New York, but like, let's really look at the logistics of your life in New York and what you want for your life. Does New York work for that? And then they start to realize that there's some sort of veil over their life in New York, and they're not being realistic about it. And that's where Neptune sort of shadows that. Here, like somewhere California, this would be a very interesting place because they would have both Jupiter and Saturn and the sun, which is, still affecting like the state of California, and then Jupiter more in the Pacific Northwest. So if someone came to me and I looked at this, I would say, okay, California is good, but you've got to stay aware of Saturn in there. Like you're going to work hard. And with Jupiter and the sun, it's mitigating. It would tell me, all right, you'll still have a social life, you'll still have family, you'll still have people around you, you'll still enjoy your life, but you're going to probably work hard. So just stay aware of that. Is that what you want? And then if maybe they want to live in Seattle or something, or Portland, this works very well. Jupiter's in Portland, and that's supposed to be a lovely place. Or Vancouver, this is a really good option for someone
Hmm.
like Vancouver. So yeah, so I look at that, and then I would change maps, and then I would go to say Europe, and I would look at Europe and see what that brings for them as well. And if someone has an option to get a job, say in London, um, I would say, yeah, you could work in London, but Mars and Uranus are going to go through there, and it's going to be intense. It's going to be, maybe your boss will be volatile or something. So or it might be like such an enormous life change that it's like exciting and thrilling and stuff. And maybe, how exciting do you want it to be? So yeah. How exciting do you want your life to be? You want it to be really exciting? Yeah, move here. And you think, okay, here's Uranus going through like the English countryside. How how exciting could it really be? But this is when people don't realize that they get there, and then there's like, oh, we have plumbing problems. Oh, we have like wind and storm problems, or something goes
Makes
on.
me think of that movie, Under the Tuscan Sun.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
where she
Yeah.
had all those challenges. It had a happy ending, but it was not what she expected.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's, yeah. I wonder what her astrophotography looked like in Italy. Yeah. So,
Right.
so yeah, so that's what astrocartography looks like. And like I said, it's a relatively new form of astrology because we couldn't do this before we computerized everything. So that's why it was, it's really handy, and I found it to be highly accurate. And the best astrocartography story I have, and anyone who's heard me speak about it will remember this. So I had someone come to me many years ago, and she said, she had this Venus line going through Florida. And I said to her, oh, so have you been to Florida much? She said, oh, yeah, I went there all the time as a child because my grandparents lived there, and I had wonderful summers staying with my grandparents in Florida. And I said, really? Oh, that's great. You also have you have a Venus line, because you'll have it in 4 different places, Venus line going through France. And she said, that's funny, because one summer when I was a kid, I made a note and put it in a bottle and threw it in the water in Florida by my grandparents. And the bottle floated to France, and a French family found it, and they wrote to her because she put her address in the bottle, and they became her second family, she said. So that was
Wow.
one of the most amazing astrocartography stories I've ever heard, is that what's the likelihood that that bottle is going to go to Florida, from Florida to France, and this family's going to pick it up, and they're going to be connected to this woman. This is,
Wow.
yeah, that was profound. And they became they're my second family. And it was just that she was in that moment with her family on her Venus line, and it went to her other Venus line. And it's just, brought her this richer life. So, and the bottle could have floated to the Hudson River. It could have floated to Greenland. It could have floated to South America. But it went to France,
Wow.
where her Venus sign was.
What a
So
fun story.
yeah, that was really amazing. So yeah, there you
Okay,
go.
let's see. I am not seeing any other questions, but I'm thinking if you had to summarize, you know, 2021, what we can look forward to, can you give us a summary or a recap of
Yeah,
what to be aware of?
I would say that we should be open to the unknown, open to the innovative, always work on ourselves, and open to the ideas that come that could change the way we do things, and be very connected to the new and the innovative, and be looking for that in our lives, and also be confident that we're going to get through this time. There's all these reports about the pandemic. Oh, we're not going to open until 2022. We got to live our lives. So you have to live your best life right now in this moment. And if you want to project your future to be good, then you can do that. And you can, it's up to you when you are moving toward a new future. You are embracing something new for yourself. And so I think that it's the newness and the confidence that we're going to move out of this dark time into something brighter. And that it was meant for us to sort of assimilate something new. So, and we are in the process of assimilating.
Be open to new things.
Be open to
Okay.
absolutely open, absolutely open. So yeah, and my website, so my website changed from debmcbride.com to thegoldenastrologer.com. And that's also the name of my podcast, The Golden Astrologer. And we rebranded it, and my Instagram is The Golden Astrologer also.
Okay, so people can find you at your website, thegoldenastrologer.com.
Mhm.
They can find you on Instagram, and then you have a podcast called The Golden Astrologer.
Yeah.
So, yes, so she's going to keep you informed with little snippets. Yeah, I follow you on Instagram and
Yeah.
enjoy. And Deb's also involved in, the healing arts and lots of wonderful natural things, and has lots of connections here in Houston.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you go to Costa Rica, she'd probably be happy to see you.
Sure, come to Costa Rica. It's lovely, and there's not a lot of pandemic here, so we've done very well with it, and it's been really it's they have their restrictions and their rules and things, but yes, it's been a lot easier than like what I've watched in the United States. So
So yeah, so that's great. And we're having Christina says thank you so much.
thank you all for coming and having me. It's been really
Yeah, it's fun. And we'll record this and we're going to send it out to everybody. And also, just reminding you that Deb's offering a discount if you would like to have a session. And it's very powerful, and she records it. So you get tons of information, and you'll go back and you'll listen to it later and you'll go, oh, that's what that means. Or, oh, look, I understand that now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Very, very powerful.
And
And
the opportunity to douse with your pendulum to clear, like you're in control of your life. That's what I always say, like, I give you the information, you choose what to do with it, so you can.
right, we're not victims to our astrology.
That's right, you
We
can do
are
your clearing.
empowered, yeah, individuals. So sovereign beings, there we go. Okay, and let's see, on if anyone would like to make a donation to the Lone Star Dowsing Group, you can send us an email. It's on the bottom of the email that we send out. You can send it to me at mary@wholelifedesign.net. And What else? Let's see. We have a Facebook page. I'm not quite sure if our website is up and running. I think there were some technical issues. So, but you can find us, and we also post the replays on the Lone Star Dowsers Facebook group. So you have access to it that way. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to say thank you so much. This was really fun and informative, and I feel encouraged about about 2021.
Good, good. I'm glad. Yeah, we should feel encouraged. We have to embrace encouragement and optimism. So thank
We
you.
all need a big dose of that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here. So
Oh, you are so welcome. Okay, so thanks, Deb. It's Carol Miller in Texas. She said that I guess she meant in New York. So
mhm.
yeah,
Great.
you got some fans here.
Thanks.
So all right. Well, we'll see you guys next month, and stay tuned. So all right, have a fabulous rest of your evening, and thanks. See you next time.
Okay.
Okay, bye everybody.